All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Turner, head of programming and outreach for the Georgetown County Library. Great to see everyone on this beautiful September morning. And this is our kickoff for FOWL First Thursdays for this season. So it's great to see returning members and some new faces out there. It's great to have Mark Stevens is here from the Chamber. And that's always great to collaborate with Mark, and they're always having great things, bringing to the great events and programs for the community. And this will be what we're going to hear about today from our speaker. Should be a wonderful initiative that should bring a lot to Georgetown County. So we're very excited about this. I want to say thank you to Carol and FOWL, of course, our friends of the Waccamaw Library. They put on this series, and Carol puts on coffee and tea for us back there. So go ahead and help yourself to some of the refreshments there, and get going this morning with some good hot liquid in you. But FOWL provides that every first Thursday for us. And we have Diane Stern, our president, and our vice president, Dee Phillips, here from our Friends. If you're not a member of our Friends, please join up, because they make not just our adult programs possible, but our children's programs, our teen programs, and so much else. The Friends Center across the way, you can go get a great deal on some great books there, and lots of other items. So they keep us up and running around here. So be a friend to our Friends, please. And you can sign up online at thefowl.org. As I said, we're delighted and honored to have Erin Pate today from the Open Space Institute, and they're working hard to put together the Black River Initiative. So this is a very exciting project, multi-year project that'll come out in phases, but this is going on right here in Georgetown County, putting together new water trails and a brand new state park right here in Georgetown County. So it's going to be a wonderful recreational center, but also a great way to preserve our natural resources here and our wildlife. So please welcome Erin Pate.
Good morning. I'm thrilled to see you all here this morning to learn a little bit about the Black River. I am going to run through a lot of information. I want this to be a collaborative gathering, so if you have a question along the way, please do that. I moved to the area 12 years ago. Probably most of us moved here from somewhere else, right? I'm a native South Carolinian, but I was in Columbia, South Carolina, and I moved down here, and I've never looked back. This is a great place to live. And since I've been down here in sort of second career mode, I've had the blessing to really find employment opportunities that took me outdoors and learning about our environment and the amenities and the beauty and the natural habitat and all of that. And I didn't have a background in that, so I had a lot to learn. And it's just been an amazing journey. And I'm going to share with you a little bit today about the Black River Initiative. But I thought I would start by telling you a little bit about Open Space Institute, the organization for which I work right now. The Open Space Institute is a nonprofit organization. It's actually headquartered in what you might think is an unlikely place, which is New York. And how that started was the Reader's Digest family, their last name was Wallace, endowed this organization back in the 70s. And initially, the Open Space Institute worked primarily in the Hudson Valley and surrounding natural areas around the city to protect lands and create parks in that region of our country. a senior staff member who worked for the Open Space Institute about 10 years ago decided to move out of the city, and Charleston was where he wanted to be. His wife was from the Donnelly family, the publishing family, and they had property in South Carolina, and they wanted to move to South Carolina to raise their family. So he still worked for Open Space Institute and opened a South Carolina office, which is now in Charleston. But we work statewide. There's 7 full-time employees that work only in South Carolina, maybe a little tiny bit in North Carolina, Georgia, but primarily in South Carolina to do a number of things. And like this slide says, strategic landscape scale conservation is sort of the core of what the Open Space Institute does. And what does that mean? That means working with willing property owners to put their property in a conservation easement, which lasts forever. There are deed restrictions about what you can do on those properties, and that's an agreement with the property owner. Oftentimes, that property owner wants to sell their property, put an easement on it, and Open Space Institute, because we have the backing of this New York office and this endowment, we're able oftentimes to leverage those financial resources from New York to purchase land here in South Carolina from willing sellers, people who are interested in selling. And we look for those strategic places that are usually along waterways or particularly threatened by maybe a bad development. And we may purchase that property, but ultimately what Open Space Institute does is turn the land over to public entities like the State Parks Recreation Agency, or like a local jurisdiction, like a town or a county, for public access, for a public park. And so I'll give you more concrete examples of how that's working in our region, but I wanted you to understand a little bit about Open Space Institute. We do all this work for those bulleted reasons, to make sure that we have always clean water, and conserved property, forested property, serves as filters for water, and we need that. We need lands that are protected for clean water. We need them for public recreation. We need them for keeping healthy communities, and for climate protection. As we know, we live in an area that's often prone to flooding, and having protected undeveloped property to absorb floodwaters is really important. So all that's all I'm going to tell you about right now about the OSI. It was what we call it, but certainly there's much more you could learn about what we do here in South Carolina, and at the end of the presentation I'll tell you how you can find out more. This is a gorgeous aerial photo of the Black River, and I guess I want to ask, who in the room has been, on, near, has enjoyed the Black River in any way? Okay, we've got, maybe close to half. It is a beautiful Blackwater River. It's kind of that iconic coastal plain Blackwater River. There's very little development along the river, and it's pretty unique in our region in that it's small, it's rural, that kind of thing. It starts its journey inland in Lee County, which is kind of up in the PD area, and it flows southeasterly for 150 miles and then joins near Winyah Bay with the PD River near Georgetown. And along its travails, and you can see how windy it is. It's like that pretty much the whole way. It goes through a mostly rural landscape where it's forests and farmlands. There's just a couple of notable communities along the way. One's Kingstree, which is the county seat of Williamsburg County, and Andrews in the western part of Georgetown County are both very close to the Black River. So I know this will be a little hard to see. This is a map of the state of South Carolina that sort of illustrates where state scenic rivers are located. And the red circle is around the section of the Black River that is a state-designated scenic river. The Department of Natural Resources, the state agency, has a program whereby it uses some criteria to designate certain rivers or portions of rivers as state scenic. It would have to be, pretty pristine, not a lot of development, have unique sort of ecological qualities. And probably 20 years ago, this portion, this probably 70 mile, it doesn't look like 70 miles, but that's about 70 miles of the 150 miles of the Black River that are designated as state scenic. So what does that mean ultimately? Well, what it means is there is a management plan. There's a Black Scenic River Management Plan. You can find this document online. It's got a lot of interesting information about the history of the area, the ecological attributes of the area, about the Black River, what it means to manage the river and its corridor and its surrounding lands well so that the river stays healthy. And there's a local advisory council that advocates for the health of the Black River and its surrounding corridor. I've served on that advisory council probably for 6 years now, and we get together quarterly and we talk about what's happening along the river. We want to keep up with what's going on, and over the last couple of years we've been talking about the parks a good bit. So you know what, I will share with you that any kayakers in the room? Kayaking on the Black River is the most amazing experience I can ever describe to you. It's hard to describe because it's so wild and so much wilderness and so trees kind of coming over the river. It's almost like being, in another place, like the Amazon or somewhere that is completely undeveloped. You can see and hear a lot of the rare birds that come to our area certain times of the year. It's an amazing space, and I would encourage you to seek it out. Now, this will be hard for you to see, and I have this same map on this board. So after the presentation, if you want to come, and I can explain a little bit more in detail. But what we have here is that state scenic byway, if you will, that's about 70 miles of the river. And you can see, this is Kingstree, this is Andrews, and this is Georgetown, okay? This map is probably a year old, and there's a little more green along the river now, but all these green parcels of land along the river are conserved properties and are going to, many of them, become public parks. Okay, so that's been an effort by many organizations that have been working on the ground, and I'll talk a little bit more about that collaboration. But I will say that Kingstree's going to have, Kingstree up in, way up here, let's see, Kingstree, for decades for the existence of Kingstree, has had the Black River run right on the edge of town and has not heretofore really embraced it. They've sort of ignored it, really. I mean, there were fishermen that maybe enjoyed it, but as a town, they didn't really embrace it until about 5 years ago when they went through a master planning effort, and sort of it was an aha moment that we could become the crown of the Black River for this trailway of parks. And so they have embraced it, and they will be building out a 18-acre landing park. It's going to have a playground. I think they're planning on an amphitheater. They've got boardwalks planned. It's going to be an amazing launch for kayakers. So that's going to be a lot of hopefully interest and tourists, coming into this small town that will incubate maybe other small businesses like an outfitter or a restaurant or a, more than a bait shop, but somewhere that sells sandwiches to go or that kind of thing. So small business sort of incubator potential there. Down here, where you see this sort of green, these green parcels there's 2 of these that will become state parks. Those are under development right now, especially this big one. We affectionately call it RMS South, which is who owned the property before it became conserved. The Open Space Institute actually owns that property right now, and we'll be turning it over to the State Parks Agency relatively soon. We felt like, you know how the state sometimes moves a little bit slower than, say, the private sector, right? So as a nonprofit, we have maintained ownership of this property, so we could go ahead and hire contractors and get things moving there. So what we're hoping is in 2024, probably mid-year, two kayak launches, a picnic area will open on that property. That will be sort of the first opening of the state park property right there. There's another state park property here. There's going to be a Williamsburg County enhanced landing with picnic shelters, et cetera, here. The Butler Conservation Fund, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Private nature preserve that is open now and is beautiful and gorgeous. And I'll tell you in a minute just how you can get out there. Andrews owns some property on the other side of the river, and there is an Andrews master plan that connects the town of Andrews to their riverside property. And so we're hoping, this may not happen next year, but in a few years, that Andrews will have some level of walking, biking, trails to the river, which will then have landings, et cetera. And then just a little bit further down, Rocky Point Community Forest. Has anybody heard of that? That is a park that has existed for decades in the Choppy community in Georgetown County. Now it might sound, and it is pretty rural, but Rocky Point is further along than probably most of the parks along the river. It has a gorgeous landing. Georgetown County manages the property. They are building out trails for hiking and biking. There's an event out there, a River Day event on September 23rd. That's a Saturday. I would encourage you to jot that down and plan to come. There will be all manner of activity. There'll be guided hikes, there'll be bikes, there'll be guided kayaking, there'll be information tables, different organizations that are working in the area that will be there. And that will be a fun day just to be outdoors and to maybe, if you haven't been there, go there and just see something brand new. You might wonder kind of how all this started. So the Open Space Institute has been working with a private property owner along the Black River, Gilbert Butler and the Butler Conservation Fund, a gentleman from New York. What is it about New York? I don't know. But anyway, New Yorkers love it down here, and this is amazing. So he is a big kayaker, and he's been able to kayak around the world. He was a Wall Street private equity guy. He's in his 80s now. He came down, he paddled the Black River, fell in love with it, decided he wanted to put down some roots here, and he bought a piece of property. It's a 1,000-acre property just outside of Andrews. And he has spent, I guess I'll go ahead and tell you, he's spent $16 million so far on this property, building amenities for the public to enjoy. Now, they're not open they're not open like a state park would be, like gate open 8 to 5 kind of thing. You have to make a reservation to go. but that's relatively easy to do. And his buildings, his amenities have set a inspirational example for what's going to happen at the state park. So the aesthetic of all the parks along the river are going to have a beautiful sort of look and feel to them. How did all this get started with the state park? Well, once this private nature preserve was open and people were visiting, and people like the director of the state park agency, the thought was, well, let's look at this state park map. This is where all the little triangles or trees are on this map, are where all the state parks are. And the donut hole is kind of, sort of where we are. Now we've got, Myrtle Beach State Park, Huntington, along the coast, right? But just inland from where we are, there's this big donut hole. There's really not. And the idea initially was, hey, how unique would it be to build a park network, if you will, along a river? So there'll be multiple park parcels and different types of amenities at each one, but the connection will be the river. They're not all contiguous. They're going to be separated but connected by the river. A riverine park network, if you will. How about that? Pretty unique. I had to throw in a few pictures of the Black River, different times of the year, just so you could sort of get a sense and feel of, just so how natural and beautiful it is. This particular slide is from the front page of the Post and Courier. I think it was on Easter weekend 2021, I'm pretty sure. And it really was an article that put this whole effort out in a more public way, and got a lot of interest from elected officials and others about what the potential is for having a riverine park network and the potential impact on the communities around it. Historically, the river has not been accessible largely to the public or to much of the community that live nearby. Most of the property along the Black River historically has belonged to individual property owners who are able to sort of enjoy it quietly and on their own. It was sort of like their river, so to speak. And having these parks along the river is actually going to give many people, and a lot of the African American community that has had no access to the river, first time access to the river, which is going to be an amazing thing. And it's also going to give towns like Kingstree and Andrews an opportunity to reach out and try to build their brand, if you will, around the Black River. Right, Mark? Yeah, well, Mark's been engaged. He's been really kind of focused, watching, and supportive of this whole effort. This is not just about OSI, and although we've been, I'm not going to toot our horn too much, but we really have been kind of leaders and sort of moving this along with the park system, state park system. But there's been many, many other partners along the way: the Nature Conservancy, the local Winyah Rivers Alliance, the towns, the counties, the Conservation Bank, which has given grants to help purchase some of the properties, the Bunnell Foundation, the Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation, which have funded a lot of the programs. And we've had some great consultants that have come alongside that have helped us build out master plans for what this will look like as it rolls out. I'll have a way at the end of my talk for you guys to give me your email address, and if you want to see things like the master plan of the state parks, the whole park network, or what Andrews State master plan is going to look like or anything like that, I can get all that to you and I'd be happy to do that. I mentioned a few minutes ago about the aesthetic and how the Black River Cypress Preserve and the Butler Conservation Fund, that property has set sort of an inspirational look and feel for how the state park is going to look. And these are rough sketches of some of what the buildings would look like. But I love that. I love how they look. I love that sort of interesting, sort of angular, outdoorsy kind of look. At each one of the state parks, we know we're going to have different types of amenities, if you will. At one site, there could be more primitive camping or platform camping. Has anybody ever heard of platform camping? Like over the river, so to speak. As well as just sort of, you pull up your kayak and you find your little campsite. There could be, and I think there is going to be, one site that may have some limited RV camping, as well as some cabins that will be built. If you're familiar with state parks, there's often cabins for rent and that kind of thing. So there'll be some of that. There'll be kayak launches from all of these. There's really not going to be motorboating in these locations, and you may ask, why is that? The Black River it fluctuates a lot in terms of its depth, and it's really this high up away from Georgetown. It's really not suitable for large motorboats. So it really will be a kayaker's kind of dream, because you're going to be able to get out there without having to be concerned about fast-moving boat traffic, that kind of thing. So earlier this year, and OSI was very involved in helping secure $4.6 million in federal funds for not the state park, but the locally owned parks that are part of this park network. And that would be Kingstree, Irvin Landing, which is in Williamsburg County, just not too far from Andrews, but it's a small rural community that already had a pretty nice landing, but this landing is going to be enhanced, picnic shelters added, some other amenities there. And then Rocky Point Community Forest is also going to get some of that money. So we helped facilitate getting those dollars from Senator Graham's office. His office was instrumental in helping us secure that money. And we're super excited about how those particular parks will roll out. So what you've got these locally owned parks like towns or counties. You've got at least 3, maybe there could be up to 5 state-owned parks. And then you've got the private park that's owned by the Butler Conservation Fund. So you've got an interesting sort of public-private, different sort of aspects of this park network. So I've talked a lot about the Black River Cypress Preserve, and I thought I'd show you some pictures from there that will sort of give you a sense for what's out there. So I think they opened to the public in 2020. I actually worked out there during that year when people were like, should we be outside? Should we be around other people? And after a little bit of COVID, we realized, yes, we could be outside 6 feet apart, and we're good. We need to be outside. And this is the entrance to the park. It's 3 miles outside of Andrews on Highway 41, which would take you from here in terms of a drive. It would probably take you about 45 minutes to get there. And I've told you a little bit about Gilbert Butler, and it's 1,000 acres of just beautiful property. Here is a picture on the inside of a open air meeting facility he has out there. It's a great gathering spot. To use that place, there is not a cost, but here's the caveat. So you need to go to their website. It's cypresspreserve.org. And there's a form that you can fill out that says, I want to come out with some of my friends, and this is what I want to do, and these are my preferred dates. And they'll get back with you and let you, there's sort of a dialogue about, what you want to do and if the dates are available and that kind of thing. But there's no charge to go out there to go hiking or biking. They have a full fleet of bikes out there. They will sign a guide to you to take you around. There's about 10 miles of trail, so you can choose to do the whole thing or part of it. If you just want to go hiking and have a guide that's pointing out some of the botanical attributes of the area, there's a guide that can do that. If you want to kayak from there, that's certainly possible. You would contract for your guide that will take you out on the kayak boats, but they have kayak boats too, so you don't have to supply any of the gear to go out there. Pretty nice amenity, right? This is just a small example of their trails. They're well-made, meticulously designed trails. Mr. Butler, who's the owner, spent a lot of time in his personal energy designing the trails. This particular trail is called the Swamp Side Trail, and it just sort of meanders along between the swamp and sort of the grassy pineland on one side. So you've got two different ecosystems on either side of the trail, and it's just a gorgeous spot. And some of the things that you might see along the way would include a lot of birds. I don't know if any of you are birders. I have become one. I'm a, no pun intended, a fledgling birder. I'm learning about all the different birds. I think I could spot a few of these. Anybody can identify any of these?
Swallowtail kite.
Absolutely.
Barred owl.
Yes.
The planetary warbler.
Yep.
Summer tanager.
Yeah. How about the red one?
Summer tanager.
Yes. Now the one I don't know is the one in the middle at the top. Is that an indigo bunting? I'm not sure. I really don't know.
No, I think it's a blue grosbeak.
Oh wow, good. Okay, love it. So you birders know that probably the best time to see a lot of these birds is late spring, early summer, right? When they come back from the tropics. And but the owls you see a lot year round, really. There's also a lot of kind of flora out there. The Butler Conservation Organization commissioned a botanical study by Dr. Richard Porcher, who's kind of the premier South Carolina botanist, right? And Dr. Porcher's been out there numerous times, in his boots, traipsing around, identifying plants. They have done a full and complete plant study out there, so they've looked at every single thing that's out there and indexed it and have made that available for the public. They've also done a herpetology study that's soon to be published, so if you're into snakes and turtles and frogs and salamanders and all of that, they've got a full study on that as well, which is really cool because it's giving us, not only at that site, but for the park sites too, a really good context about what's out there, what is in this region that is so special. And so we're really documenting a lot of that. So this is, if you're paddling from the Cypress Preserve, this might be a typical scene where you're seeing a lot of, you see these in the background, cypress trees and cypress knees, and it's just sort of a magical and mysterious kind of trip. Now I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that the Black River Cypress Preserve / Butler Conservation Fund offers free kayak trips for kids groups. And so schools all around our region and even, as far as Charleston and Florence will bring their classes to the Cypress Preserve to go out on kayaking trips. And I was involved in a lot of those when I was working out there. And I saw kids who were extremely apprehensive about getting in a kayak boat. And the guys that work there are very good about doing on land training before they put any kids in a boat. They tell them, how to sit in the boat, how to paddle, and answer any questions the kids have. Then they carefully get them in the boats and take them just for a little bit. And what you see is a transformation in the confidence that these kids feel about being on the water. And there's something that is so sort of endearing about watching that. And that continues. So if you're involved with any, church group or any school group, any kind of thing like that, that you think would benefit from having a trip out there. And it doesn't have to be necessarily with the school. It just needs to be, a group of some size. I think they want to at least 15, if not more, to make it sort of worth the time. So any of you know about Freedom Readers as a nonprofit? Well, so they brought their group of kids out. This is sort of an after-school reading, tutoring type nonprofit that works in our region with kids who, just need that extra. And they brought out a pretty large group of kids for kayaking a couple of years ago. And at the end, we got this video of this young girl giving sort of a testament to her experience that she had while out on a kayak. So let me see if I can play this for you, hopefully.
My first time kayaking was awesome. I encourage you all to try it.
Okay, that's all, but I just thought that was so cute. Wasn't that cute? I loved it. This is a picture of what a typical school group getting ready to go out looks like. I mean, there's a lot of them. Coastal Expeditions is the guide. They're an outfitter out of the Charleston area. They're great. They do this with kids all the time. They know how to get them excited and sort of get them to work through their fears. It's a lot of fun. So, think about that as you think about kids groups that you may be aware of. This is a logo about the Black River. I think it's beautiful and it sort of captures a lot of that. I have a ending video that I want to play that the Open Space Institute commissioned, and it's about the Black River, and it's about this whole project. And I'm going to have to get out of this to hopefully play this. Hopefully, it's about a 2-minute video. I think you guys will really enjoy this.
South Carolina rivers have always been the givers of life. They nurture us, our bodies, our spirits, and our curiosity. They are the founding point of our communities and the current that joins us. Isn't it time to celebrate them? In South Carolina, it's been almost 20 years since we built a state park. Let's change that. This is the Black River Initiative. The Black River Initiative is a visionary, community-led effort connecting riverside public and private parks along South Carolina's scenic Black River. And we're just getting started. The 70-mile trail guides paddlers through black waters banked by ancient cypress, rich wildlife, and historic communities, and connects existing protected lands with brand new state and local parks for paddling, hiking, unwinding, and exploration.
I grew up in Winsburg County, but I also grew up on the river. Part of this initiative that's happening right now is to try to get more public access to our river, to let more people experience the beauty that we know about.
Well, with a project like this, it protects citizens against major floods. You have the root systems that absorb the water, you have the quality soil that absorbs the water, so we need this type of development.
We certainly see opportunities for the residents that live in this area to be able to start new businesses or build on their existing businesses and really take advantage of the fact that we've got a lot of new people coming in to experience this wonderful asset that we have.
I think that's the value of the river. You could build a chamber of commerce around it. You could build a church around it. You know what you build around it? A healthy river, you build a healthy community.
I didn't even need to present. I just needed to show you that, right? That's a beautiful, I love that video. I never get tired of seeing it. That's kind of what it's all about, is we have the plan, like the video said, we have the land. We will be seeing the parks open incrementally over the next years to come, a little bit next year, a little bit the following year. It's all dependent on funding, right? So we hope to continue to attract more state funding, more federal funding, more private foundation funding. Boeing has said that they're interested in getting involved. So that, you know, it's all contingent really on money. Like we have to get that going, and it is going. It's just going to be a year by year, and we estimate 7, 8, 9 years until it's completely 100% built out. But I hope you guys will take time to go west. That's sort of our backyard, right? I mean, it's just in our backyard, really. And it's not far. I mean, a good way to kind of view it, and soon, would be the September 23rd date out at Rocky Point. Make the trip, make it a little day trip. It won't take you long to get there. Questions for me?
Could you tell me the date again of the Rocky Point event?
Sure thing. It's Saturday, September 23rd. Yeah.
Is there a way to monitor? You said, you know, trying to keep the motorboats and things off the river. You know, things like the jet skis and stuff like that. I know some of the parts of the river they wouldn't even work, but others on the wire spots. I mean, to me, it just really kind of spoils the ambiance.
Yeah.
To be out there and have some jet ski cutting its curls around.
Right.
So I didn't know if there's a way to monitor that access.
You know, I would say east of Rocky Point, you're probably going to have big boats and jet skis, because the river is so wide, it's almost like a lake there. The further west you go, the more narrow it continues to get, and it just naturally will monitor that. Now, a lot of time, what this advisory council that I mentioned earlier is thinking about is how will the river continually be monitored? Department of Natural Resources is actually the agency that has game wardens, and we hope that there'll be more game wardens on the river as there's more usage of the river. So there are some there now. But it's something that we're advocating for through that advisory council.
Do you see the possibility of having the Black River in totality protected? Is that out of the question, or is that doable?
Well, the whole 150 acres, miles of river might be difficult, and maybe over time, but that 70-mile stretch, there continues to be, efforts. Our senior land staff member continues to talk with landowners that are interested. There's a lot of timber farming out that way, and a lot of the timber farm owners are interested in possibly selling their property. I think there's a high likelihood, it's not going to be 100%, but there'll be a lot, and a lot more than what you're seeing on this map right now. So have me back in a few years and we can talk about more conservation, because I think there will be, absolutely.
Are there campsites at Butler?
You know what, at one of so he owns 3 properties on the river, and at one of them, they allow camping.
I'm just thinking of scouts.
There have been scouts groups out there, for sure.
My Auto Troop 360 went out there, I went with my son. It was one of my absolute favorite campouts I've ever, we at Coastal Expeditions came and we did we went out in kayaks. It was the most peaceful and wild kayak expedition I've ever been on. Saw a beaver dam, saw swallow-tailed kites up in the air. It was absolutely wonderful. So.
Awesome. Yeah, so think about that. Sarah Wilson, who used to be at Hobcaw and was a teacher at Coastal Montessori, is now sort of the visitation coordinator for the Black River Cypress Preserve, so she would be the person to talk with. And you can get with her through their website, would probably be the easiest thing to do.
So where's the first park opening?
So it's going to be in Williamsburg County. Well, you've got Rocky Point, which is kind of, already there.
Where's Rocky Point?
Rocky Point is...
Can I hold up for you?
Yeah, that'd be great, because it is kind of hard to hold it. Thank you, appreciate it. Rocky Point is right here.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And that's Ramsey Grove, which is a plantation, which was formerly belonged to SCANA. It was sort of a retreat for the electric utility. When Dominion took over, they sold it to the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism. So that's not going to be really part of the park network, but that will be some public amenity at some point. And Mark, to answer your question, let me make sure I'm telling you correctly. It's in Williamsburg County. I'm pretty sure, let's see. No, it's this parcel. This is this parcel right here. It's called, right now we call it RMS South, but it's going to have a nice creative name at some point. In 2024, we'll be able to have some events out there. Yep. So a lot more to come. And there is a, thank you. There's a place on the, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Private homes along the river?
There are a few. Yeah, there are. Some of them are directly on the river, but there's not many. And then there are privately owned large parcels where the home might not be right on the river, but they have river, it's privately owned along the river. Needless to say, the landowners are like a little bit concerned about, a lot of paddlers coming by and maybe stopping. So we're kind of working through those concerns, but the game wardens will have a lot of help with that, because if you were paddling and you had an emergency, or if you had a thunderstorm or something, you want to wait for emergency access for people who may be paddling on some of these more remote areas. I was going to say that on the OSI website, there's a button where you can sign up for Black River Initiative updates. I'll be writing those and actually working on one right now. And if you would like to give me your email address on your way out, we've got a sheet of paper on the back table. Just give me your name and email address and I'll get you signed up for that. Yes, sir.
Economically, historically, what was the Black River's use, in previous years?
Well, way back, and Lee Brockington could tell you a whole lot more than I could, but anyway, I'm not Lee Brockington, but there was a lot of sort of shipping, not shipping, but there was a ferry that would come up from Georgetown, and certainly timber was part of that, back and forth, up and down the river. The Black River, I know, was a passageway from Georgetown County to Williamsburg County, which was a township, and a pretty, Kingstree was kind of a big deal back in the day, right? And so there was a big, and some community around the Black River ferry sites. There was one near Black Mingo, and there was one sort of near the Black River Cypress Preserve at 41 called Potato Ferry.
Mostly, I was thinking more in terms of products, probably mostly timbering.
Mostly timbering, yeah, absolutely. It's still largely a farm/timber area. If you ride through western Georgetown and particularly Williamsburg counties, they're still growing a lot of row crops and timber out there.
And how much of it is, I apologize, is tidal land or river? I was just wondering how much.
Where that changes is about where Rocky Point is. I mean, a fair ways in from the bay, there's still some tidal influence. But roughly around here, it starts to get a whole lot less. So further inland, it gets, and you can see how squiggly that is once you kind of get it up inland. If you're a paddler, if you're a kayaker, that's a lot of fun, I'm just saying. Because it's not, it looks narrow, and you're probably picturing very narrow, but it's still 30 feet wide, probably, if not more. Yeah. Anybody else?
For the children's groups that go out to Black River Cypress Preserve, is there a cost per child for kayaking?
No.
So Coastal Expeditions just, I guess, coordinates with the foundation?
Yeah, the foundation pays for it, and it's sort of that's their thing. They want to get kids used to being outdoors, recreating, learning about the environment, loving the environment. And that's the way that they see that happening. So, yeah, it is great.
So for the conservation easements along the river, who oversees them?
Well, it depends on, so if a landowner retains ownership but puts an easement on their property, they are usually working with a land trust organization, and that land trust would be responsible for checking annually to make sure things are like the agreement said. And that could, Open Space Institute really doesn't like to hold easements, so it's usually an organization like PD Land Trust or the Nature Conservancy or some other land trust. What we typically do, which is a little bit different, is we can hold property, but we try not to hold it for long. We want to, our sort of mission is to help secure land in conservation and then turn it over to a public entity, which is a little bit different. You're welcome.
Is there a planned activity for distance kayaking?
There will be. The state, and probably in concert with some of the other locally owned parks, will work on some paddle plans, if you will. If you're a real energetic kayaker, I mean, I could say you could probably do a 5-day trip out of this.
I was wondering if that's being planned.
Yes, it will be.
You need to have drop-off points along the way.
You,
Identified yet. I don't see that on the plan.
Yeah, I don't think it's fully fleshed out yet, but there is a phase 2 plan being worked on right now.
Several years.
You know, it's, some of those primitive stop-offs will probably happen fairly soon.
Seems like the land is there.
The land is there.
Or it just isn't identified.
Yeah, and I think that work is happening. It's just not public yet. What you've seen, have you seen the master plan online? So I should send you a link to that so you can kind of get a sense for that. But there will be stop-off points.
That's not my activity.
Okay, but there will be.
But I've been on the Black River. I've done distance hiking, and I know people that
Yeah. I mean, conceivably, you could start a kayak trip in Kingstree and go to one of these. And there will be, there's probably some more land that could be used as stop-off points that aren't on this map yet. But there will be all the way down to Rocky Point. So you could camp, stop, camp, get back up, get back in your boat, and head on down.
conservation easements, those might have opportunity to camp.
Yeah, I think so.
Depending on the restrictions.
That's right, exactly. I would say more likely than not.
Can I ask a question about open space to your
Yeah,
organization?
sure.
And promotion of open space and access for people to roam, right? And so that gets into some of these broader properties like Brook Green and Hopcaw and even the Butler organization.
Right.
More freedom to roam versus limited access to these wonderful properties.
I know. That is such a fascinating question. Because I know over in Europe, there's sort of like this protest going on about trespassing. Did you, are you? Yeah, I saw that. In America, it's sort of a different sort of attitude towards land ownership than it maybe would be in some of the European countries where there is an effort to sort of trespass, like private land ownership is less of a thing. Like you can use private properties to roam on. Here is sort of less like that. I mean, ownership is a little more valued and sort of set.
Does open space have a position on?
You know, not that I'm aware of.
In Maine, sounds like that's what would be involved.
Well, it does, and we do have that public access sort of ethos about our work. But we also are mindful that landowners, legally have the right to restrict access. So
you work with organizations to promote that.
Absolutely, yeah, it's important. Yep. Thank you, guys. Great questions. Really appreciate it. Oh, there's another question or two. I'm sorry.
Erin, I just want to let the group know that we do have a copy of Dr. Crochet's Wildflower book at the Friends Center at a great price.
Very good.
In the video, they showed a section where there were adults that were taking kayaking lessons.
Yes.
Where was that?
That was at the Black River Cypress Preserve. So they take out adult groups as well and do training, all of that. There is a cost for adults, not kids, but adults. There is a per person cost, and I want to say it's $65 per person, which includes all your gear and somebody to train and guide you on the river. I think you need You'd have to check on the minimum number of people for that, but I think you should take advantage of it. It's a great opportunity.
Since you talked about that, the kayak launch spots where you can kayak for on your own kind of thing, are there double kayaks available, and is there some kind of cost approach to that?
On your own, you're really on your own, kinda. You know, that's where the hope is. You know, Mark's going to recruit all these small businesses that are going to be outfitters, and you know, there's going to be access to kayak boats that are, you know, kind of working the Black River. Like they set up trips, or they are able to rent out the gear or that kind of thing. That is a big need, and I think if you know anybody who might be interested, that's an opportunity. Yes, ma'am.
My question is similar first. I did see some people on horseback. Is that part of the?
You know, I saw that, and I see that every time, and I think there could be on one of the state park sites a place where people can bring their horses and go trail riding, just like they do at Hopcom. So, yeah, exciting, right?
Well, thank you so much to Erin Pate, and thank y'all for coming. Great way to start. And Aaron Brickle, our videographer, has put this on tape, so he will edit this and put it on the Georgetown County Library YouTube. So this I think bears repeating, it bears reviewing online, so you can go back and look at all the details again, because there's a lot of information Aaron gave us, and this is really an exciting thing for Georgetown County. So thank you. We'll have you back in future. Thank you.